All right, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Peer Learning's 2022 Success Stories Giving Challenge training. I just want to go ahead and announce a couple things before we get started. Like I said earlier, before November 1st, Giving Challenge registration opens. Make sure that is big and bold and highlighted on your calendars so that you register when registration opens on that day. The very next day, we'll have our Getting Ready Kickoff webinar taking place on November 2nd. And you'll get to know any new features that are coming to the Giving Challenge and GiveGab website. We'll have the GiveGab team available to answer any tech questions you may have, and we'll also be announcing some pre-Giving Challenge prize opportunities as well as some prize opportunities during the Giving Challenge that organizations are automatically eligible for. We'll have our second quarterly Giving Challenge virtual open house on December 19th. Those are informal trainings where you can hop on during the hour and ask our team any Giving Challenge related questions or even some advice if you need advice. Like, we're happy to just listen and provide some feedback. And then we have our registration closes on just January 12th. And January 12th is our huge kind of day for deadlines. We're also your deadline to submit your profile and the giving partner to be submitted and approved is January 12th as well. And every Friday, we have weekly virtual open houses if you have any questions on how to update your profile and the giving partner. So for today's workshop, we want to make this as interactive as possible and break it up so that you have time to ask as many questions to our presenters today. So we'll have 3 breakout sessions with 2 breakout room options per session. So each presenter will present on the topic that they're presenting on for about 5 minutes. And then we'll have 20 minutes where you can choose between the 2 presenters in that session to go to their breakout room and ask them questions. If you wanted to stay in one breakout room for 10 minutes and then go to the other, you'll have the ability to hop in and out between those breakout rooms as well. And then, so we just ask that you leave your questions for the breakout rooms, and then we'll also have a general Q&A towards the end of the workshop altogether. So before we get started on that though, we did want to take some time to kind of just go over goal setting towards the 2024 Giving Challenge. So we're going to have a quick poll that we wanted to ask everybody. In 2022, did your organization set a goal for the Giving Challenge or any other challenge that you guys participated in? Did you set a goal, whether it was total amount raised, whether it was we just want to have a good time and hope for the best? Did you set a goal in the 2022 Giving Challenge? So we'll give you a minute to answer that question. Got 77%, 80% of people answered. Give a couple more time. All right, so it looks like about 76% of people in this training did set a goal in the 2022 Giving Challenge, and that's awesome. I know there's that saying that when you set a goal, when you write it down, the likelihood of you actually achieving that goal just increases so much more. So it's very important that you set goals for the 2024 challenge. And the difference between, one in 2022, here's some statistics that we found out after everyone took that post-Giving Challenge survey, that 74% of nonprofits who participated in 2022 actually set a goal, but only about 14% exceeded their expectations, about 40% actually met those goals, and almost 50% didn't actually meet those goals. But the difference between 2022 and what nonprofits have moving forward towards 2024 is that we actually have a lot of statistics that you guys can use to kind of benchmark and set your goals for 2024 in a more reasonable and realistic way. So here's some statistics that we found in 2022 that you have to use at your availability when you're setting your goals for 2024. So overall, nonprofits, out of the 667 nonprofits that participated in 2022, the average amount that was raised was about $14,000, and nonprofits received about almost 120 donations, and that's just altogether not determining or not basing off of size categories. That's all nonprofits. And as you can see here, nonprofits who either use peer-to-peer fundraisers or tried to get additional matches and challenges, they're rallying for support, and the dollar amounts that they raise increased even more so compared to those who didn't use those campaign tools or those strategies. And we know that not everything works for everybody, but it's definitely something to consider using for your campaign strategies in 2024 if you have that availability and time capacity to try and rally peer-to-peer fundraisers or try to have donors provide an additional match or challenge. That's definitely something to consider. And then on top of that, we were able to split these categories by sizes so that you can also benchmark yourself based off of an organization. Like if you're a medium-sized nonprofit, a small nonprofit, large, or even if you're completely volunteer-based, you can compare yourself, okay, what was the average that a medium organization performed in 2022? And it was about $11,000 that they raised. So that you can see, okay, can our organization in 2024 raise $12,000? And so we want to have this available to you so that you're able to goal set with more, you have actual historical data that you can compare yourself to and try to figure out what's the best goals to set for 2024. And then even with the size categories, we also separated it out into sectors. So there are different benchmarks that you can use when you're setting your goals for 2024. If you're a small nonprofit that works in arts and culture, you might have to use your own historical data as well as what was provided for overall all animal or all arts and culture nonprofits and see, okay, can we really raise 45,000, or was 45,000 because there were a lot of large nonprofits, but we're a smaller nonprofit and we need to go on the lower end. So it's up to you. And so some things to consider for 2024, you can consider, I think at the top of this slide are kind of like the obvious things that people like to look at when they're setting goals. The total amount of money that they raise, total number of gifts that they get, or donors, how many new donors they want to gain. But there might be some other things that are a little more creative or more out of the box that people might want to consider when setting goals. So is it that you just want to increase your board participation compared to previous years you participated in the giving challenge? Do you want to test new strategies to try and get new donors, grow your monthly giving program, or have any, if your current donors, you only had 60% actually participate in the giving challenge, but you want 75 to participate this year, that could be a goal. So if anyone has any different goals that their organization has ever used in a previous giving challenge, feel free to drop that in the chat and share that with others, and maybe other people might consider using those goals in 2024. And then, as I said before, when you write down a goal, you're so much more likely to actually achieve it. So we actually created a goal setting worksheet for organizations to use this year, which has all the data that we explained earlier on the back of the sheet, and then you can use the front of the sheet, fill it out how you want to achieve those goals for 2024. And of course, remember the SMART acronym: be as specific as possible, make sure it's measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Yeah, are there any questions before we move on to the presentation? Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to our presenters who are going to be sharing their campaign strategies that they used in 2022. And we're so thankful that they were able to take the time today to create this information and to share it with everyone. who came out today. And we also know that not everything works for everybody. So it's up to you to decide whether or not your organization has the capacity and resources to do some of these strategies or not. But we have Shelly with Hope for Communities, who will be talking about leveraging peer-to-peer fundraisers. We have Chris and Jillian from the Center of Anna Maria Island talking about how you can acquire additional matches and challenges. We also have Linda and Debbie with the Warehouse of Venice, who will be sharing how they develop business partnerships in 2022. Gary from Military Heritage Museum talking about organizing a successful pop-up giving station. And then to close out our breakout sessions, it's Miri with Friends of the Myakka River on campaign strategies for small nonprofits. And Autumn, who will be talking about campaign strategies for large nonprofits, representing Humane Society, Humane Society of Sarasota County. So our first presenter is Shelly, coming from Hope for Communities. They were a medium-sized nonprofit that raised $95,000 in 2022. Their first giving challenge year was 2018, and in 2022, they had 484 donors and 517 gifts. Some of their campaign highlights from 2022 was being an award recipient for Best Peer-to-Peer Fundraising Campaign, Best Turnaround, and a Fast 50 prize winner. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Shelly.
Thank you, Odie. And as she said, I'm with Hope for Communities. I've been volunteering with them for 5 years, on staff for 3.5. And it's pretty amazing to see. This is the third giving challenge I got to see. And in 2018, when we weren't using peer-to-peer fundraising, we raised, I believe the number is like close to 18,000. And the last 2 giving challenges, we've raised over 90,000 using that peer-to-peer. And so for us, it's a huge strategy. If you don't know, we as an organization partner with schools, churches, and community partners to prepare kids to go back to school and then continue that throughout the year. The way we raise our funds, a specific portion of that for our program expenses is through the churches. And in 2020, the first year, we asked, how can we help these churches? A lot of them, tithing was down. They didn't know if they were going to be able to host their events. And that was crucial to our nonprofit as well. We asked, how can we help them? And with the giving challenge coming up, I know in 2020, that helped a ton of us. But we asked, how can we make this work for us? And it was through the peer-to-peer. So we set that up for each of our churches as a separate peer-to-peer fundraiser. I think they love the fact that we set that up for them. We give them all the skills they need to run that for us. And so we let them know far enough in advance that they could prepare their congregations. They could tell their donors what was going on. And I also think they had fun watching the giving challenge. It's almost competitive when you're doing peer-to-peer. So we asked, for us, it's the churches, but even I would say, as she said, is asking what works for your nonprofit. We've never been able to find a large match where we could get a double match, but for us, we're already utilizing this type of fundraising. So we went to the churches, but you could go to board members, or you could ask, if you hold galas, you could ask table chairs to fundraise in that way, table heads. So it's more asking those questions. And I do think the giving challenge is an easier ask for most. It's already out there. It's a known program and people love to get behind it. So when we used peer-to-peer, we gave our churches half of the match. So when they were raising $100, now they're raising $150. And then we kept the other 50% of that match for our operating cost. And what ended up happening is God pulled through tenfold for us, and we got that same 18,000 for our operating cost, but we actually were able to serve more children, or serve children that wouldn't have been served because of fundraising deficits. So that helped a lot. So I think just using peer-to-peer to your advantage, knowing how to use it, ask yourself who would be the lead of each peer-to-peer, and setting that up for them and giving them ample amount of time to know how it works is the key to success in using it.
Thank you, Shelley. That's great. All right, next we have Chris and Jillian of the Center of Anna Maria Island talking about acquiring additional matches and challenges. They're a large nonprofit, and their first year in the Giving Challenge was in 2012. In 2022, they raised over $72,000, had 148 donors, and 150 gifts. And out of their campaign highlights for 2022, because they got additional matches and challenges, they raised about 45% of their total amount just off of that. So without further ado, I will pass the microphone over to Jillian and Chris.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm the new director of development here. I'm not new to the center, but I'm new to the position. The center, just so everybody knows, we're pretty much just a community center it's for individuals of all ages. So we just try to incorporate everyone, all ages, that can come here and have fun. So just a little bit about what we do to get ready for the Giving Challenges, pretty much to start early, maintain ongoing relationships with everyone, all of our donors, and just make sure that we integrate those donors and their commitment strategically into our campaign. So we start out with a timeline. So as we were talking about earlier, goals are super important. So if you know your goal for your annual for your Giving Challenge, it's the most important thing is to know the goal, know where you need to reach. It's a clear understanding of what you need. And then also early discussion. So for the past couple of months, we've been talking to potential match or triple match, as you will, to let them know the impact that they could have on the Giving Challenge and try to get them locked in before the end of the year. Another thing that's important, and you'll hear me say many times throughout the presentation, it's year-round engagement. So just making sure that your donors feel valued even when you're not asking them for money. You want them to feel valued through all year round. So we want to make sure that we just maintain open lines of communication with them all the time. So the next slide. How do you ask them for money? So it's really, like I said, you'll hear cultivating relationships, and relationships here in general are super important to us. We try to maintain relationships with every donor that we have throughout the year, so they know that, like I said, they feel valued. You want to make sure that you establish trust and demonstrate commitment to them and maybe their cause. And then when you do have to ask them for money, like I said, the goal is super important. You need to ask clear and specific asks so that they know how they could potentially increase our impact with the Giving Challenge and their triple match. So show impact and recognition. So just making sure that they know the difference that they could make within our community and our organization. Our organization is all about our community here on Anna Maria Island and our surrounding communities. So community is super important to us. And then again, maintain the relationship. So we're, trying to get new matching donors, and we're also trying to create new donors in general. So it's just important that you keep those relationships even after the Giving Challenge, like before, after, during, all year round. It's just super important that they know that they're valued. The next slide. Okay, so this is the challenge. So a lot of people have asked, how do you go back and talk to the same donors year after year? Because it does, lead to donor fatigue. So how to overcome those challenges is to maintain strong donor relationships. Again, another relationship. But like I said, it's super important that they know that, we're here and we value them, and we're not just asking them constantly for money, but we value their relationship, not just their money. And then emphasize the benefits of the matching challenge. I mean, we can talk about the success that we had last year and show them what Triple Match did for us as an organization and what we've been able to provide for our community. Maintain open lines of communication, just making sure that they're aware of where we're going, what we're doing, and what our mission is. And then show impact of their contribution. So just like I said, last campaign, what we did and how that impacted us. The next slide. So our success doesn't come from just securing support. It comes from securing our relationships with our community knowing that they believe in us. And then it's also the benefit of a community that believes in the triple match and what it can do for us, because it's huge for I mean, it only happens every other year. So the triple match is a great opportunity, and just to show them the value of that, and they know that. That's it.
And that means we're ready for our first breakout room session. So everyone will have the chance to choose whether they want to go with Shelly and learn more about peer-to-peer fundraising, or go with Chris and Jillian and learn more about how they acquired additional matches and challenges.
All right. We'll give it just a couple more minutes. I could start though. Like I said, we started using peer-to-peer fundraising 2 years ago, and it has been, it changes our giving challenge completely. We go from $18,000 to over $90,000 using peer-to-peer. And that 90,000, I had never seen the numbers that it's Odie, correct, showed. And it is mind-boggling to see where we fall in line with medium nonprofits. And that is 100% due to peer-to-peer fundraising, which I believe is great. I think asking, like I said, how can you utilize that? And I mean, we can brainstorm too, even if anyone had any questions of the people you would put in charge of being your peer-to-peer. I wanted to leave this open for anyone to have any questions about peer-to-peer. So if you guys want to put anything in the chat as well, we could do that. As we wait for others to come in. How many of you use peer-to-peer fundraising in previous giving challenges? All right, a couple. And did you guys feel like that was like a huge benefit? People are still popping in. Perfect. Okay. Well, I think I just wanted to open the conversation. I don't know how I was supposed to specifically run the breakout session, but I know if we're looking at numbers and strategizing, you could start asking yourselves, like I loved when they were talking about setting goals, is start asking, who would I set up as a peer-to-peer? Sorry. 1 second. Sorry, I'm messaging with Sarah. Her microphone isn't working, and I'm just along for the ride right now.
I hear you.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions? I would love to start answering questions, maybe starting a dialogue on peer-to-peer. Is there any?
I have a question.
Thank you.
So if you could just kind of start with the very basics of how to approach someone when you want to, get them engaged in peer-to-peer. The challenge that I think a lot of us have is, people, when you kind of bring up the idea of them being fundraisers, it's really intimidating. And a lot of people just kind of freak out and just don't want to do it. So how do you just kind of gently, engage people in a conversation, maybe even at the beginning stages?
For sure. And that's a great question that I love. So with our churches, they're already needing to fundraise for us. So that's an easy ask. I would say board members. If you have board members, I think there's already the expectation there. And you could even present it like this is an opportunity that's easy. I would all say, I know that the Giving Challenge isn't easy, but it's an easier ask when you're approaching about money, when you're posting on social media, when you're sending out text messages, when the entire community is in this giving spirit. It's a lot easier to ask than a direct. You could explain the matches. I think that is honestly, but you asked, I mean, how do you approach that? I think it's simple ask is like, hey, would you want to be the person in charge of this? And it can be interactive. You can have people, is there someone that you think would be great at competing with you? Sorry, the word wasn't coming out. And I think if you start to ask those questions now, maybe ask too, like, are you having, if people hold galas, I don't know if I say that word correctly. I'm from South Dakota. I say everything incorrectly. If someone is already hosting a table, those are great people to go to. You know that they have those communication skills. They like to invite people in. Those are the people I would go to first. Let them know you set up all of the back end. They just need to share it for you. Any other questions? We have a goal of 70,000. Who should we pick as a peer? I'm reading your question well. I hope I said that correctly. Well, maybe tell me more about your organization. I think that it would be unique to know who are you with, who do you serve, and that would say a lot of who you would pick as a peer-to-peer. Oh, you're muted.
I'm with the Boxer Diversity Initiative, which promotes diversity and inclusion to encourage a better understanding of the diverse groups, racial, religious, and gender in Southwest Florida, and that embrace the mission of diversity. That's my group I belong to.
Okay. Do you have regular meetings, or how do you come together?
We have a board and we have meetings from time to time to organize. It's not on a regular basis, not every month. And we just had a recent meeting. We're trying to organize ourselves to reach the goal that we have proposed of $70,000 for this year.
For sure. I would say then, if that is, I would go to the board and say, hey, can we each start a peer-to-peer fundraiser within our own fundraiser? And the nice part is each of your board members then can reach their social circle. And we all have different social circles, right? And when your organization comes together, they overlap. And so I would go to your board. That's where I would start to reach that goal, is them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, on the back end. So when you set up the peer-to-peer fundraising, I haven't done it in a year and a half, but it's all, you input all of that information. You're going to have, sorry, people are coming in. Sarah, is your mic still down? Okay, I was like, she might be able to explain that a little better than I can. But it essentially comes down to like sharing links with people. We set all of that up in the giving partner profile, and it's not very hard at all. I will say it's a couple step process. You have to make sure that you have the right email addresses and things like that. You're going to collect that contact information for them. But then you just send out the links, and they'll have individualized sections within. Is that correct, Sarah? Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes. So I'll define peer-to-peer fundraising. So peer-to-peer fundraising, for those that don't know, if you haven't utilized it, it is essentially asking almost like fundraising. So all of these people are fundraising for our organization, but they're actually fundraising for themselves. So if you could imagine that you had 10 people going out to fundraise for you, they each get their own little sliver, and you can see how much that specific person has raised, not by their dollars, by their efforts. And so they can go in and see who is assigned to who. And like I said, that's why it makes it super competitive. The peer-to-peer part is the social networking of fundraising?
And Shelley, can I interject here for a minute?
Would love that.
Yeah, so the one thing that's really, really exciting about peer-to-peer is for those of you who have never participated in the Giving Challenge before, you'll have your page, your organization's page, that's kind of like your calling card of what you're fundraising for. And then anyone who sets up a peer-to-peer fundraiser on your behalf, like Shelley was mentioning, they have their own kind of almost like a little section on your page. And they can set their goal, they can have their own special image, but then they can share it, as Shelley was mentioning, with all their friends. So they're going around and trying to, go after their friends and their families and their parents. And, so they are generating a lot of excitement. And as you mentioned, if you're setting goals, there's a competitiveness like, oh, look, so-and-so has already raised, 500 or even $100 and I only have 25, I better make some phone calls. So there's just all this activity, which can be really, really exciting and helps raise more money, which is the bottom line, the goal.
Yes. And that brings up a great point too. It's social media is amazing for the peer-to-peer fundraising. The sharing capabilities really make it easy. Texting, it's like I said, an easy ask almost in that aspect. I feel like people are looking, people know the Giving Challenge is coming up. And so when you're sharing it on your social channels, people see, oh, someone that I'm connected with values this organization. Let me go look at this organization. I also think the peer-to-peer fundraising, even if people aren't donating, they're coming to look at your giving portal and your reach is stronger. People are learning about your organization and they may become future donors, even if it's not for the Giving Challenge. So that social aspect is huge. I think one of the successes to using the peer-to-peer is strategizing with your leaders well in advance. So we let our leaders know. They told their congregations well in advance, hey, this Giving Challenge is coming up. Hey, we're going to have this match. This is going to be here. This is the best way to utilize our dollars, so that everyone knew. We had some churches who did this really well. It went out in emails, text reminders, and they were the churches who raised their fundraising for the program expenses plus extra and served extra children in the middle of cost deficits. So that's a big thing. And again, Giving Challenge is an easier ask. We love that part of it. I personally am not a good public speaker. I don't approach people well. I also have this beautiful sun glaring right down on me. But I know that it's easy for me to say, this Giving Challenge is happening. Here it is. It's laid out really easily for you. You can see our budget. You can see everything right there. Would you give? Yes, the giving. So Barbara, to your question, peer-to-peer fundraising, from my understanding, does only happen within the 24 hours of the Giving Challenge. Is that correct, Sarah? Yes. Okay. Obviously that's the only time we used it, but I did want to clarify that it is that.
It is also possible to set up peer-to-peer fundraising on your profile. So your giving partner profile. So it kind of looks the same way, but to your point, when you don't have the energy of the Giving Challenge, it's much more intimidating for someone to be like, now I'm just fundraising on behalf of the organization and my little fundraiser is plastered on their page. So, when people learn the Give Gap, which is the fundraising platform, you learn all the different functionalities. There are these things, but it's a lot easier, to your point, exactly right, to approach people during the Giving Challenge when there is this, everyone knows, this is all about fundraising right now. So it's much easier.
Yes. And someone asked how many organizations in the group are using text asking. And let me clarify on that. I would say we aren't texting originally just this. Our donors know the giving challenge is coming up. We've already communicated that. A text would maybe be used as a reminder day of, hey, today is the day. I don't know if you had it on your calendar. Hey, could you go look at this link? Here it is. And so that's a great question. I don't know how people are utilizing texting for donations, but that's how we specifically use it, more of an easier form of communication. Any other questions? We have 5 more minutes.
How many peer-to-peer fundraisers did you actually have?
Yes. So we set up, it would be 15 to 18, depending on our churches. And actually, not all of our churches utilized it. So we probably always had 10 successful peer-to-peer fundraisers running. And like I said, that switches our number from 18 to 95,000. It's a huge pivot. And I know that, right, those dollars are already being fundraised, but for us, it's the match that's so vital as part of that giving challenge. And the generosity is huge. And I need to go to the other breakout and find out how to find those matches, because that's one thing we're not good at. Someone asked if organizations use multiple types of fundraising, such as peer-to-peer combined with a pop-up or some other form. That is a question I don't specifically know. I would say Sarah says yes, and I know that you can utilize all of those. We don't actually, but I know that if we found a way that we could utilize that, we would. Yes, there we go. The peer-to-peer fundraising, has it been a big learning curve? That's actually a great question. So we have a population of volunteers that are not significantly technology savvy, and the peer-to-peer was not hard for them to use at all. It was, that's where I say you set it up, which it's also not hard to set up, but you share that and it's so easy to share. It's so easy to use. It's so easy for them to track. One of my favorite parts is like when you're exporting your CSV numbers from the platform, you can directly see which peer-to-peer it was with. You could sort that data. You can give the churches that data, or your whoever is in charge of your peer-to-peer. If they're asking who donated under their name, the data is really easy and it is super easy and user-friendly.
I noticed that the Humane Society raised a pretty large amount of money, and I was wanting to ask Autumn, how do they achieve that goal? Do they use any of the peer-to-peer, or is just general donations? How it works? Because this.
Yeah, Manuel, you're in luck because I will be presenting on that exact topic in the 3rd breakout session.
Okay, great.
So be sure to join that one.
Okay, thank you.
Those are great questions though, and I appreciate them. Any more? I think we have just a couple minutes left. Otherwise, I'll wrap up. Just stating again, if you missed, I think asking yourselves in the coming giving challenge is what will be helpful and what will be useful, what tools. The giving challenge and the giving partner profile is huge. We all know it takes a lot of work to set up, but it can give us so much, and there's so much to utilize. And so I would start using these trainings and ask what's specific to you. Peer-to-peer is not going to be for everyone, but if you could find even just 2 peer-to-peers, is finding someone who could share on your behalf. Ask, how does that help us? And then set those goals. And also make it easy for them. Set everything up, ask the questions, help them leverage, tell them, email then, text then, and explain to them the social media aspect of this part of peer-to-peer fundraising. I think this specific type of fundraising is quick fundraising. It's not the same as asking these huge donations. I think this can be the small, hey, $5 makes a huge impact even here. Do you offer awards or gift for those that have raised the most during the peer-to-peer? We don't. We don't offer awards or gifts, but I will say there is bragging rights. So we do put it in our newsletter, which is a pretty big deal. They like that. So I think always acknowledging donors and people who put the extra effort, and that is when it comes to donor fatigue, is always acknowledging those things, but it doesn't have to be an award in our mind. I feel like when they're acknowledged, that's enough, and they keep coming back and they keep giving. All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. I hope you learned more about peer-to-peer and are ready for the giving challenge like me. Perfect. Well, we'll be brought back to the main room, Sarah said, in 2 minutes. Thank you for coming. I can answer one more question if anyone would like to. Will it automatically put us back in, Sarah? Okay. So we don't have to figure that out again. Favorite personal part of giving challenge? I personally get really excited for the giving challenge because I think the whole community is on fire. Like, this is such an amazing opportunity. And I have a lot of friends who work in the nonprofit sector as well. So we like to talk about, what are you guys doing? How are you collaborating? How much money did you make? And I think the giving challenge itself, it brings this spirit of giving that is unsurpassed. And I know that you probably all feel that way as well. So thank you, Sarah, for everything that you guys do.
We didn't have a whole nother presentation, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough time that if anybody had any questions that they could ask. As you can tell from the presentation, relationships are really big to us here at the center. Just making sure that, we are constantly talking to members. We have most of our foot traffic comes through our building before noon. So I make sure I go down there at the heaviest times so that they know that, we're here, we want to talk to them. We want to know about their life. We're interested in them. So it's really important for us in our relationships with not just the members that come here, but also our donors that are outside of the building. Even, Chris and I, will go to lunch and there'll be people out the center there. The island is pretty small. So wherever you go out on the island, you're going to see somebody that you know. So we just make sure that we take the time to talk to them wherever we see them at. But did anybody have any questions about our triple match and how we got there? I tried to make sure that our slides were pretty direct and bullet pointed, but anybody have any questions?
I have one.
Sure.
Hi, so I'm Ann with Take Stock in Children. And we've already had, now this is going to go to Giving Tuesday, but we can obviously relate it to the Giving Challenge. We've had 3 donors throw up matches for Giving Tuesday already. What do you find do you think you get more leverage if you publicize their names, or if you say, 3 donors have raised matches in this amount? Because sometimes we battle, like, do we say their name? Do we not say their name? One cares, one doesn't. How
Right.
does that work for you all?
Well, I know that we do have some major donors that do want to stay anonymous, so we do not mention their names, but we have that relationship with them. Like, I know there's another donor that he doesn't care. Like, yeah, go ahead, put his name out there if you want to. You don't have to, but he is a name on Anna Maria Island. So when people do see his name, they are like, oh, I want to match because he's matching us. So it's a fine line, but it is that's one thing that the old director of development used to do here at the center is he didn't lay his cards out all on the table. He was like, okay, where are we at? When's our low point that we can be like, hey, we have this now. It almost is like we're incorporating it strategically during the campaign when we feel it's fit. So sometimes you have to leverage that as well.
Right. So not throwing it all out in the beginning.
Right. Be like, oh, we have a batch of $100,000. Let's get there. But it just depends on what, like she said earlier, not everything works for everybody, but I know that has worked for us in the past.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any matching donors yet?
Typically the ones that we have for Giving Tuesday, do it again for the Giving Challenge.
Okay.
If history repeats itself, that's what'll happen. So fingers crossed on this one.
So you reach out when you're securing a matching donor. Do you do that by phone call, in person, by mail? What do you find is the most effective route to securing a matching donor?
Well, there's a lot of avenues, but it's definitely more of a personal one if we're asking for them for a big chunk of money. So I would prefer, and I know that the previous director of development also preferred face-to-face. The one thing that's nice about the community center, a lot of our donors come here, so we can catch them at one point or another. We do sports at night, so some of those parents are donors. So we try to catch them when we know that they're here. So I actually have somebody coming in later this afternoon. I found out she was going to be here, so I'm making a purpose to be here when she's here so I can talk to her in person. I mean, sometimes when you call people, they don't know the number, they don't know where you're calling from, so they're not going to answer. I know I don't answer if I don't know the number. So just leaving voicemails, I feel it's not very personable unless you have a purpose to call them and then they can call you back for that purpose. And then you can kind of slide in like, hey, but it just depends on, I mean, I know that not everybody, your donors aren't coming through your doors like we are here. So it could be a little bit harder. But if you could just call them and they know your number. I know everybody has our executive director's number. So it's kind of easy when he can call somebody because they know his number in their phone because he talks to everybody. But I think it just depends. But I definitely wouldn't do the mail. I think it has to definitely be more personable.
I have a question.
Sure.
So my name's Kelly, and I am the new director of development and marketing for the Gulf Coast Partnership in Charlotte County. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with us, but we are the Continuum of Care lead agency on homelessness. And I'm looking for ways to be effective in our Giving Challenge without competing with our partners or the agencies that we fund.
Mm-hmm. So what's the question exactly? Just how you can be a little bit more strategic?
Yeah, do you have any advice on how I can go about that so that we aren't competing with the partner agencies that we tend to fund?
You know, I have somebody that could probably be very beneficial for you to talk to. I'll get their information. Maybe we can connect outside of here. That we on Anna Maria, we have great community partners. So I feel like that's not something that we really have to deal with over here. We all help each other and have great relationships. But I could definitely get a contact for you. And I know somebody that's kind of in that realm that you're in. So she may be a good contact.
I appreciate that. I'll send you an email. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I see some other people are being added on. We're just like letting people ask questions. If anybody has any, suggestions or any questions.
Is there any particular wording or phraseology that you would use to introduce somebody to the Giving Challenge and perhaps being a match?
Actually, I feel like a lot of people know about the Giving Challenge, and just like I said in the presentation, is to talk about what you've done in the past and what's worked and what the impact could be. I think is the key, is to really making sure that they know that the potential for their match, what it could do for your organization. That's the most important thing, is to just, even if you don't specifically have to say, hey, I need this much money, be like, hey, look what you can do for us as an organization, and in my sense, as our community on Anna Maria. Impact, I feel, goes a long way.
We're new as a nonprofit. We're a year old, Service Dogs Saving Lives. And I'm wondering how difficult it is for you to set all of this up. And that's a little off topic, but it looked a little overwhelming.
What do you mean set up? Like the strategic plan, or?
To set up all of the paperwork to actually do the challenge, to actually participate in the Giving Challenge itself.
The Giving Partner profile, we've already updated ours. So, there's really not that much to it besides just getting people, getting it out on social media, making sure that you have a plan. Maybe it's because we've done it so many years, it's kind of like it's already in place and we just continue with our timeline that I showed on the slide. But I think if you have everything in place, it's not that, I don't know, I don't want to say complicated, but it is a challenge every year. But it's something that's, could be very rewarding for our organization if we can get as much money as possible. I don't know if that really answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
We've been doing this for a few years, and I'm pretty sure at the very beginning, filling out the paperwork, from the very beginning, we felt the same way as you. It's like, oh my goodness. But the person who called us to try to give money wasn't somebody we know really well, but he was working down his list and we weren't on the list anywhere to be able to give. So it was important for us to try, just for that one person, because we know there's a lot of people that were more connected with us and interested us than he was, because we didn't know he was really. We knew he was, but he was searching for us and we weren't there. So we kind of broke it up into sections, and some days we just thought, this is it. We're just going to really dive in and answer a lot of these questions. And, oh, where's that form? And what does that form mean? And whatever, and work through it. But here we are years later, and it's so worth it, because we were those people that had to fill the paperwork out we are still those people that have to figure out what's the plan for this year, and extremely thankful that the Community Foundation is kickstarting us to make us start early, because we didn't always start this early. And yeah, we're working on Giving Tuesday, but we probably put more effort into this than Giving Tuesday. I don't know, maybe in South County, not that many people are familiar with the Giving Challenge as they are with Giving Tuesday. I don't know. So, but as far as the paperwork, yeah, just at first it's more difficult. And then it's like, oh yeah, I need to update that. Or, oh, thanks for that email. I need to send that form in because now we have a new one of that. So it's definitely not as difficult as you move forward as it is when you start.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, just do it.
I
do it a
appreciate
chunk
that.
at a time. Chunk at a time.
Big breath.
Yeah.
Keep our name and number if you need help. Debbie's really good at
Yeah,
stuff
Debbie
like that.
does it.
Yeah,
She'll
I would say the Friday open houses might be helpful for you too.
Thank you for sharing. It's an open forum. Anybody want to say anything or ask any questions?
Jillian, I'm curious if you have a donor, let's say it's $10,000, that they want to provide for a match. That's $100, $100 gifts.
Mhm.
How do you approach that when that's been exhausted? You've had 100 donors who've made their pledge or their gift, and do you just say, we've reached our quota, or maybe you have another donor who's is going to step into that breach and you've got another 10,000?
I think that's probably a quick Chris question.
Larry, I can answer that for
Okay,
you.
yes, thank you.
Sorry, Chris Colhane here, Executive Director. I have the flu, y'all, so I apologize for not presenting today. Jillian stepped in for me, so thank you, Jillian. Larry, exactly like you said, in years past, we have had donors that stepped up and added an additional match. So if the $10,000 did run out, we lumped on to another $10,000. I think we had $30,000 or $40,000 last year that triple matched our matches last year. Does that make sense?
I just knew that 10,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it goes so far. And if you have 400 donors, you can go through that fairly quickly. But that's helpful if you've got 2 or 3 folks who've lined up to do a match.
Absolutely, and that's our plan for this year, to have 3 or 4, even maybe 5 significant donors like that to match for this upcoming challenge.
I'm curious too, Jillian and Chris, are these donors who typically may give each year that amount of money, and you just approach it that this year we'd like to use your usual gift for our Giving Challenge match?
Yes, I would say.
Yeah,
I would say yes. I think Jillian brought up donor fatigue. We try to communicate with all of them and try to move stuff around. Sometimes we'll have those donors donate for our annual campaign before Christmas. But I would say traditionally, yes, they are longstanding donors and or relationships that we've had over the years. But we try not to continue to beat on the same donors as well, and we try to mix it up and bring some new donors into the fold.
That was a great question. I know we only have a couple more minutes. Is there anybody else that has a question? Thank you everyone for your input.
It looks like we have a question in the chat here.
Yeah, so it's somebody's looking for help for their small nonprofit. I don't know if that's something we would do or if that's the Patterson Foundation would do, but I'm happy to speak to anyone. That's looking for help.
Should we pop back over? Is our time up? I couldn't see.
I would think so.
Yeah, we have 1 minute left. So any last questions from anybody?
I have a question. In terms of the profile, we have an approved profile. So if I'm understanding all of you, actually setting up the campaign is not, the hard part is getting the approved profile, or am I incorrect?
The profile is the most time consuming. You'll have to go back in and edit campaign stuff, especially for for us, we will do the triple match. So we'll have to edit some items. But the hard part is what you've done.
Thank you.
We're going to get started on our next set of presentations. All right, so we have Linda and Debbie with the Warehouse of Venice, and they'll be talking about developing business partnerships that they did in 2022. They're a medium-sized nonprofit, and their first Giving Challenge year was in 2018. In 2022, they raised almost $13,000, had about 60 donors and 70 gifts. They won Best Business Partnership for Medium-Sized Nonprofit, Best Giving Challenge Community Event for Medium Nonprofit, and they also won Facebook and Instagram Donor Shout-Out prizes. So I will pass it over to Linda and Debbie.
Thanks. I'm Linda, and I am the executive director. Not that I don't know what that means to some people, because some executives are real involved and others aren't, but I'm in the office and we work with teenagers in the Venice area, middle school and high school, offering them hope, possibilities, positive futures, and fun. And of course, we love the fun part. So I am out there with the teenagers as well, on campus, around town, anywhere that they are. And this is...
I'm Debbie Eaton. I am the board chair and I'm also the development director. So that's convenient, I guess. So we're going to talk with you today, if you come to our breakout session, about developing business partnerships. And business partnerships may be a great next step for you. It may be something you've never even entertained. But we're going to talk with you about a strategy to develop very solid business partnerships for the Giving Challenge. We're going to use the outline that's below here under strategy So we're going to cover the finding of some things, some strengthening and some engaging. And basically, if you want, do you want to go to the next slide for me? Perfect. So as far as strategy is concerned, we're going to talk about who it is you need to find. And we'll give you some details on who those categories of individuals, groups, or companies, or even other nonprofits might be. And we're going to talk about what to strengthen. And for the strengthening section, it's figuring out what your gaps might be, some things that you maybe don't even know or don't have, or don't even know you don't have. So we're going to talk about how to strengthen those areas. And then
Oh, and when to get started.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, when to get started. So like the when is super important. I know we all wish it was yesterday or last week or last month. As I said earlier in the session, answering a question, greatly appreciate the Community Foundation getting us all a kickstart with the different breakouts and the workshops that are offered in the open house. The first one they did, I sat in on, and it was informative. If you sit in and you go, hey, I already know all of this, wait, because somebody will ask a question like, wait, I didn't even know to ask that question. So I was in transit from one place to another for a meeting and just logged on. It was super simple and could listen in. So those are good opportunities. But it's just, the win is like now. And
Right.
we engage with business partners all year long.
Right.
They're crucial to what we do, not just during the Giving Challenge and not just even giving money, but in kind, time, encouragement, a hug at Publix, whatever it is. It's just good to know those people and have those people.
So during our session, we're going to talk about how to figure out what some of the details might be that you need to do. We're going to do some exercises that I think you'll enjoy, and they've helped us be very successful in several different areas of our different giving challenges that we've participated in. So we just invite you to come. We're going to have a good time, and we think you will too.
But the reminder would be that this is about business partners. So if you've utilized business partners before and want to enlarge that or figure out a different way to do it, come. If you've like, what do you mean by business partners? We do that all the time. So that's pretty much a lot of our lifeline of what we do outside of grants. So we are going to share that during the breakout time. Just because we did an event doesn't mean you have to do an event.
Right.
So we can elaborate on that and different ways to utilize the partners as well as other ideas.
Right.
So that's, go ahead. That's what we're
Come on
doing.
over. Pick us.
Yeah, they're gonna have to scroll to find everything. So if you just jumped in, let's just keep looking until you find, I guess it'll say business strategies or something. They'll introduce it in a second. That's all we got.
Thank you, Linda and Debbie. Next, we have Gary with the Military Heritage Museum talking about organizing a successful pop-up giving station. They're a medium-sized nonprofit whose first year in the Giving Challenge was 2013. They raised about $97,000 in 2022 with 254 donors and 269 gifts. They won third place for best overall campaign and for a medium-sized nonprofit. They were number 2 on the medium-sized organization leaderboard and number 20 overall on the Giving Challenge leaderboard. So Gary, take it away.
Thank you, Audie. Obviously, I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story and the story of the other 9 nonprofit organizations that were part of our pop-up Giving Challenge station back in 2022. Seems like it was a lot longer ago than it is today. Well, we had I'm going to talk a little bit, I'll give you an overall of this whole concept of the pop-up giving stations. And then in the breakout, I'll get into a lot of detail as to how we just made the decisions that we made on who participated and then again on what kind of program we were going to offer that day. But if I can describe the day for those of you that have not been participating in a pop-up giving challenge station, it is an amazing opportunity to really tell your story along with a number of other great organizations, of which therefore, you bring that synergy into one location, which the goal is, of course, to bring in a lot more donors, which is exactly what happened. for the museum, our unique situation was to decide on whether even to do that that year. We hadn't done it before. It was a new idea, I think, back in 2018, and we kind of backed off then. But in 2022, we decided, let's pull this off. So we went forward. And then we had, prior to really getting our strategy in place, we had an opportunity to have a matching donor. And then we had to decide what we're going to do related to blending the two together, a matching gift along with the giving station, as well as many other different strategies that we incorporated. And so we made that call that we were going to dedicate the matching gift. The board made the decision to dedicate the matching gift to our endowment fund. And I think that made a huge difference because people felt they now had a good cause to help support the museum. And then we decided the Giving Challenge would be a great place to help tell that story. So I'll cover things like, first off, the whole concept of, what are the benefits that you're going to get when you do that Giving Challenge with other nonprofits in your organizations. A little bit about getting your board on board, because some of the board members struggled with, why would we invite others in, right? We're going to lose donors. Well, of course, the opposite is what happened. Most of the organizations there added more donors, and many of the donors decided to give to multiple nonprofits. The venue and the requirements that you really need to pull this off. And again, so who selects what organizations? What's the decision on how that mix should look like? And then opportunities to involve the partners from the very beginning into what exactly is going to happen with the Giving Challenge pop-up station. So once we get that in place, then it comes down to the planning and execution of the Giving Challenge experience. So what's going to happen that day? Is it going to be both days? Is it going to be one day? What else can we engage in that? We had a number of different activities going on during that period. It wasn't just each of our organizations participating, but we also had a car show going on. We had food trucks on site. Just had a lot of different type of ways to incentivize other people to come. Promoting it, there is a benefit to the Giving Challenge. You will get more PR as a result of that, because it makes it a lot easier for the media to reach out and tell the story of 10 organizations versus one for each PR release that they get. So I think combining this really helped us and we did get front page coverage because of this project of bringing others together. So yeah, it's going to be I think you're going to find it a very interesting journey to listen to how we went from never doing this before to a very, very successful pop-up one. Most of our organizations have already signed up for next year. Maybe all of them have. I have a board member that oversees this. So, I guess that signifies how much they felt that they got out of it as well. So I look forward to telling everybody that story.
Thank you, Gary. And now for our second breakout session. So you can choose between attending or developing business partnerships with Linda and Debbie, or learning more about pop-up giving stations with Gary.
Thanks for everybody. Probably unmuted. Thanks for everybody's patience waiting for everyone to get to the room that they want to be in. And if you wanted to be in the other room, in my mind, I have a hard time distinguishing between an event and a pop-up still. We've kind of done both, but the pop-ups were something that we joined in with other nonprofits. Right. So it wasn't our event that we were putting on, but there'll be kind of some overlapping in what we have to say. Is there a minute?
Go ahead and start.
Okay, so I guess we said earlier that we're the warehouse. We are predominantly in Venice, serving Venice area in South County for the middle schoolers and high schoolers, their families, the community as a whole, and even the businesses that we work with.
we do, like we said, and I think everyone has said that they work on business partnerships and partnerships in their particular community all the time, and we're no different than that. And you pretty much have to do that, I think, as a nonprofit to be successful, because it's not a once every 2 years thing, right? We have to do these things all the time, and we're no different than everyone else in that way. So we serve nonprofits, for-profits, and then our own clientele, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Oh, wait on, I'm trying out some new technology for me.
So while she's figuring it out, by the time she gets here, we'll probably be on, it's the exact
There
same
we are.
slides you've already seen. So we are going to talk about find who, what is it that we want to strengthen, and when are we going to engage? We're going to talk about all of those things. And at the end, if for any reason there's something that we didn't answer, we'll leave time at the end for question and answers as well.
Right. So this is are we on the
Yes.
All right, so like I said in our intro, we're going to talk with you about
Next slide.
okay. Okay, here we are.
There we go. Oh,
I
that's
think
a cute picture.
I
You don't
think
wanna
we're
miss that.
all in the same place now.
You don't
that
wanna
we
miss that
want to
piece.
be. So the strategies that we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about finding who and what is it that you need that you maybe don't even realize that you need right now. So we'll talk through how to find some things like that. We're going to talk about what you may discover are some gaps in what your needs are. We're going to share with you what we believed that our gaps were, and then what we did to go ahead and help mitigate some of that. And then, okay. So who's this? You. Oh, okay. So find about, first of all, who you want to involve in your event or your pop-up or whatever it is. Everyone that's spoken so far today talks about their board, and we're no different than that. For us, board was absolutely essential. And in my vision, board in something this big for an organization needs to be required. So no matter what part they can play, somehow I believe that your board needs to be required to participate in your giving challenge in every aspect that you can engage them, because it's just super important that you get that complete buy-in. And I know Gary, who is in the other breakout session right now, he says that every time we hear him, that his board, everyone got an assignment, maybe multiple assignments, and it's just important to get the board involved.
And then the next one is businesses, which is what this breakout is about. So hopefully everyone's already working with businesses of sort, but it was really easy for us because we have business owners on our board. We have people on our board that work. We have people on our board that are retired for something. And everyone else, we have teens on our board, and they know businesses. Their parents own or work at businesses. So businesses are fairly easy for us to find, and you probably already have them. And if you don't, just think through, who do you use as a business? Your sponsors, your donors, people that are already partnering with you are probably in a business somewhere.
Like Linda's saying, the board for us, it's not just about the money, and I'm certain that for you it isn't either. So you might want to try to make your mind be a little bit broader as far as what businesses and what they might do with your event. And then clientele for us, we're a youth organization, and so our clientele is the area teenagers here in the Venice area, both middle school, high school, and their families, and sometimes the school campuses, because we do get to meet on the school campuses with those students.
So what we want you to know, though, that what we're saying isn't really about us. It needs to be about what you want to do, who you want to reach, how you want to do what you're doing better with. What businesses do you want to include? What businesses and relationships do you want to strengthen through this? And how are you going to do that? Not so much about what we did, though we did an amazing event, and we'll have time to share at the end, hopefully, that, but what are you going to do with those business partners?
So we're going to go through a brainstorming exercise, which I have found over the years to be invaluable for overcoming obstacles or for just coming up with ideas of some things to do. So we're going to actually I'm going to talk through with you a successful brainstorming activity. And I want you to take pretty good notes. So our concept for our brainstorm was that we wanted to involve businesses, and we had to figure out what businesses to invite because we needed them to provide specific things. So we went specifically for businesses. At the last Giving Challenge, you had a much stronger social media presence than we did. So that's kind of what we were talking about for our brainstorm. So here are some ground rules for brainstorms. First of all, you have to find someone who can write on a big easel, and you're going to have a really bright marker of some kind, because they're going to need to write quickly as everybody's throwing out these ideas to them. And just want to remind you, it's not a spelling test, so don't sit there and go, well, that's spelled wrong, because it's not about that. They're going to write down all the ideas that they hear over their shoulder as fast as they can on this easel, because later on you're going to do some voting on that. So it's not a spelling test, it's more of a speed test. It's a speed, excitement time. And so once you've got the person that's going to do that, they're going to get up to the easel. And here's the rules about doing a brainstorm. The brainstorm isn't to expound on what your idea is, it's just to get the idea on paper. So for example, you could say, go swimming. Nobody in the room says, that's dumb. You can't do that in a brainstorm, or it's not going to be successful. You have to just keep going, and they're going to write down swimming. And then maybe the next idea is parachuting, write down parachuting. You just keep writing until you can tell that the energy level has dropped and nobody else really has any ideas about whatever your topic is. So for us, we've done brainstorms in the back. We've done brainstorms before because we were trying to come up with events for the teenagers. So pick a topic. You might want to figure out which businesses, so you could brainstorm on which businesses you want. So you can't, they're going to write it all down. Nobody in the audience ever tries to explain the idea. Just get the idea on the paper. You can't say that's a dumb idea. And then when you're done with that, you're going to do some voting. So let's say you got 30 items on your board now. Everybody's going to vote. And you're going to, before that vote, if there are any items on the board that you really don't understand, what does that mean? You ask whoever provided that a very brief explanation of what did you mean by that idea. Everybody's going to vote that's there. Everybody gets, let's say, 5 votes. You can't vote for the same thing 5 times. So you go through every item and you count the votes and you put the number of votes by that item. And you do that for all 30 items. When it's done, you're going to find some items that probably didn't get any votes. You'll find some items that get lots of votes. And then you're going to weed that down a little bit. Let's say you get down to 15 from there. So then you go another round of voting. And let's say this time you do 3 votes. If you do a vote again, you write the number down, and then at the end of that, you weed it down one more time. Everybody gets 1 vote, and you put the numbers up there after that 1 vote, and that's the selection of what the top ideas are, and in your instance, what the top businesses you want to make sure that you approach to. It's extremely powerful. We've made many decisions based on that, and we've had a lot of projects that we've been able to move forward on by using this brainstorm technique.
And some of you, or most of you, have probably done brainstorming in the past, but following those exact kind of structures truly makes it way more powerful. And as you can tell, we're kind of high energy. We work with teenagers. We are on top of it all the time. And we're very passionate about what we do. But this whole process is more of people call me and say, Linda, I need this. I know you got a guy for that. It's just a statement. I got gals too. But this way you'll find out, who do you have? Who do you know? Who knows who? And who you don't know. It's like, oh, we need that. We don't know that. And then it boils right down to, well, I don't know that. You don't know that. Wait, I think I know someone who knows that. And truly, you phone a friend. So it's all about working, you're pulling in networking. And in all of this process, you're raising awareness, which is super important for us as well. So, and we're all of us are better together when we work together.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask whatever you wind up having to delegate, or we'll know about that in a second. Don't be afraid to ask people, because people really do want to help and participate and be a part. And like Linda's saying, our theme has always been we're better together. So from that brainstorm, you're going to be able to design an event or an activity that you want to pull off for Giving Challenge, or actually you can do this for anything in your organization that you want to get some ideas for. So you're going to do the designing of the event, use the same brainstorm process. Once you pick the specific event, come up with the different activities that you want to do with that event. And I think you're going to find it to be pretty powerful. If you go through one and it was really stressful for you, then give us a call and we'll see if we can help you out somehow.
And there's always gonna be obstacles.
Right.
Whether it was, oh, great, there's 2 events going on at the same time that we have to be at, and we don't have that many people sometimes.
Right.
So we had to figure out where to do that. And then the event was different. We don't actually have a facility any longer, so we are virtual, we are in the community all the time.
Right.
So we had to find a business partner. And then it's like, what do you mean we need different insurance for that? And then this one had to call it, and then this one called this person, and we delegated all that out to overcome and to figure out pretty much the last couple of days that we had to figure all of those out. And again, delegating was key.
Yeah.
And all of those delegations were business connections.
Or teenagers.
Correct, but the main obstacles were big, like
Right.
where the location, that's that business. That business had called that business, so he needed to call that business and find out their insurance while we worked on ours. So those kind of things were all in the delegating. So you've kind of heard a little bit about the event and what we're doing overall with businesses. Well, not really at all, but because we use them for everything
Right.
with business partners, with the Drug Free Youth Program and all kinds of things. But I think I'd rather open it up to questions at this
That'd be
point.
great.
I know we talk fast, we try to go slow, but we don't do that very well with what we do.
We're not good at talking slow.
No, we're not. So if there's questions, you should be able to just unmute and ask the questions. That worked in the last breakout session that we were in.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Can we see them?
So if I can figure out how to unshare this, will be great.
What kind of obstacles did you encounter with this?
Well, we had the one I mentioned, we had to be in 2 places at the same time, actually 3, because I tend to be the person in the office, which is really hard for me because I want to be out where all the action is. We're going to do that different this year. Right. Yeah, we are. So I needed to be here for posting photos and getting all of that done. And then we were at a pop-up invite we didn't want to turn down, plus the event we were doing. So that was one obstacle. Insurance was an obstacle. And I don't remember, I think it might have been a bounce house was the biggest insurance issue, which makes sense, but we had insurance, the business had insurance, the bounce house had insurance. But overall, we needed to figure out how that all worked together. And I wasn't that person. So if you just Google Venice Warehouse, you can find us. We're pretty easy to find. And I can get that person to you because I wasn't that person. And then we had food, which I think we worked that out pretty early with one of our business partners, which teenagers are going to be where. So some of the obstacles were minimal, but maybe didn't feel like it at the time. So
something that we discovered too late to do anything about was we had our events in the back of a business, which was great.
Largest place. That's
the largest place. But what we discovered was because it was behind their building, it wasn't particularly visible, even though we had signage out there and we had people in hot dog suits out there trying to get the people into the back of the area. So we did what we could, but it wasn't. Next time we're going to be out front so that as people driving by, they're going to be able to see.
well, the business itself was kind of like, oh, I can't use up all those spots. We're still open. The business people still need to come in. But I think now they've realized, wow, this was amazing. And they've partnered with us for quite a while, but now they could see it on their own property, how something like that functions. So now they're like, we're just going to work that out different. And yeah, we want like food trucks and things up front as much as we can. And then everything else in the back. Wow. I know.
Thanks everybody for coming. We hope that you were able to get something out of what we said. As you can tell, we're pretty excited about it. So, give us a call anytime.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
As I mentioned, back in 2000, and really it was late 2021, we did have a donor set up a matching fund for the museum, and it was to help raise money in our endowment fund. So when looking at our strategy and the fact that it was a match, we made that decision as a board of directors to go ahead and allocate all the Giving Challenge money to the match. It kind of makes sense. Obviously, we could take in in 2020, we took in about $27,000. And so he said, well, that's great. If we do, that same 27,000, we can get it matched again and take in a little over 50,000. So it was that kind of mindset that made the decision that we're gonna go ahead and allocate the funds and tell that as part of our story that would happen. And ultimately, what you saw is what really happened is we ended up way overachieving and raising the $97,000. So, the match between our donors and the Patterson Foundation took it to about 49,000, just under 49,000. So, and then the matching fund brought it up to the 97,000. So, so it's absolutely amazing what you can do and how we're able to create the messaging that would encourage people to make a larger gift than just $100. And that was part of our two strategies. You heard earlier about Audie talking about setting a goal, which is what we did, and then the strategies to do that. So we had two strategies, which was basically add more donors, right? Increase the number of donors, and the second is to increase the size of the gifts that we were getting. And so from that, you needed multiple strategies to support those two key strategies. And so how do we get more donors, right? How do we reach out and add, these, in our case, I think we set like a goal of 30% more donors. And so that's how the pop-up giving station came about. Was we really ought to look at, trying to reach out and find donors that don't necessarily understand what the Military Heritage Museum is all about. So we then, once we made that decision as a board, we'll get to this slide next, we started to, think it through. So I mentioned earlier, the first thing was, overcoming some resistance. There was definitely some resistance as to not understanding that the Giving Challenge pop-up station could really make a difference, positive difference, and that it's not really going to be where you're going to lose donors, you're going to gain donors. So there was some good conversation. So getting the board on board was critical. So one of the first things we did to get the board on board was to get another board member to oversee this. And Al was an incredible volunteer and still going to run our Giving Challenge for next spring. And he does it for a couple of other nonprofits as well. So having another board member, take this on and then saying, I need everybody on the board's support, made a big difference. So if you're thinking about, as one of the best practices, that was one of the best practices, was get the board volunteers to take it on. And then the rest of them quickly, joined and dismissed any resistance that we got. The second thing was, where to take place, and if it was going to take place at our place, which is what happened, because we do have a large facility and we have a lot of open spaces and we have a large theater. And so how could we leverage all of that, including places for food trucks and parking in the car show? So that, so having those thoughts as to what kind of venue and which venue you should go to. So some of you may want to do a pop-up station, but you may not have the venue to do it at. So collaborating with somebody else would probably be a good best practice, to go ahead and find another organization that has the facilities to do something like this together. So who gets to come to the party, right? That's the next question. And, we struggled with that too. It's sort of like, well, we really ought to focus on all military themed nonprofits. All those that support veterans seemed like a good idea. And then somebody else talked about, no, I think we ought to look at just, all attractions in Punta Gorda, try to bring all of our nearby neighbors together. And then the third one somebody brought up was, how about we get a variety of different organizations, those that have different backgrounds, different, sectors. and which is ultimately what was decided to do. So, we did. It was really interesting to watch, to put the blend together. So we ended up with a couple organizations that are, animal welfare organizations. We had a couple cultural attractions. We had a couple health organizations at, in the pop-up station, environmental organizations, and then we also had United Way was one of our partners that for that day. So a really variety, and I think that also added some interesting, synergies, because we had people come in that obviously, were very passionate about a particular sector, now learning a lot more about, a different sectors or multiple different sectors. So that kind of added, I think, was one of the reasons why we saw donors making multiple gifts to different nonprofits. And then, so selecting, once we identified them, and then, we had a couple board members reach out to the organizations to invite them to take place, to be part of the team. And from there, it was getting them all together for like a kickoff meeting, which is what we did, and begin the planning. So, the first thing was, putting that kickoff meeting together. So we wanted, some we knew each other, and some we did not. We had never met before, and so first thing to do was to try to we had some refreshments, try to get some people excited about it. Did some icebreaker type exercises so people got to know each other. And then we really had some objectives that day, which was to ensure that everybody played a role in putting this together. It wasn't just going to be one organization doing all the heavy lifting. It was going to be everybody taking a piece of it. So whether that was public relations, whether that was the decorations for the day, signage, it was each one had a role and responsibility to be engaged with. We also looked at, what's the day going to look like? And I mentioned earlier, is it going to be both days? Well, I'm glad we didn't make that decision, because most of the people came and make their gift in, I think, the first day. So we did an afternoon. I think it started around 11 a.m. all the way up to about 4 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon. And so that gave folks a, kind of a targeted time frame to come to the venue and see all the different groups that were here. Planning the day also included what else could we do that could drive traffic, and that's when we got into, well, let's see if we can get some food trucks, and see we get some groups. We have that theater, so we got some groups that put on demonstrations on the theater. We invited each of the nonprofits that were there to take on about 30 minutes of presentation activity. I remember the Peace River Wildlife Center, did a great show. Of course, they have various different birds, owls coming together. We did have to split, as I recall, in the venue. We had to put the birds on one side and the dogs on another side, because they just didn't seem to mix well together when they were next to each other. So, we had those kind of things to try to work through as to how to make sure that it was a win-win scenario for everyone. But all of that created a lot of excitement, a lot of synergy for the day by really thinking it through as to so much more than just the 10 of us getting together. It was just creating a place where donors could come and also feel part of something very special. So promotions. So how did we get the word out? Well, certainly everybody started creating. We created a collateral, marketing collateral that had us all on it, and we gained press releases. We sent them out to all of the different media that we could. And sure enough, our local paper, the Charlotte Sun, when it came time to promote the Giving Challenge, we were the ones that they chose to be the front page. They had pictures on the front page of the newspaper to really tell the story. Now, they listed other nonprofits, which was great, but it was the feature, was the pop-up challenge taking place at the Military Heritage Museum. So I think that made a huge difference on our turnout, is being able to work together on reaching out to not only the media, but also to all of our constituents as well, letting them know that this was going to take place. Logistics, having a table set up was really important for each one, giving folks room and space that they could tell their story. We wanted to make sure that everybody had the ability to help donors, make a gift while they were there at the museum. And as I said, several went to different tables. And later in our feedback group, that's when we learned that a lot of folks felt that they had seen donors going to different tables making gifts. So the logistics is really important on, again, planning this through and making sure that everything is in place, and the capabilities of helping everybody being easily able to make a gift while they were there at the museum. And as I said, what we experienced was this incredible synergy that took place. So much so that obviously we're doing it again. Most of our agencies have all signed up. They signed up months ago to be part of the Giving Challenge pop-up station that we'll do. I know we've actually turned several away. I wish we could take on more, but at some point in time it becomes unwieldy. So we felt 10 was a good number for us. So that kind of takes you through the whole process of thinking through what is your strategy and how you can leverage this, and then working it to the end game of a really great day for everybody to participate in, and then follow it up certainly with a debriefing to see what worked, what didn't work. We've learned a little bit, and we'll make a few changes this year to really enhance the experience. So I will go ahead, and if we can get back to the main page, we can I'll answer any questions.
Gary, I have a question about technology.
Go ahead.
So when you did this, did you have stations set up with laptops, or how did everyone actually donate?
Good. So every station had a laptop, right? That was part of what they needed to bring to the table. So every station brought, needed to be able to take in donors and be able to process them, because every donor really has to use their own credit card in order to get credit. So you had to really make sure that there was enough stations for everybody. I know we had 2 stations available just in case we had multiple donors at the same time.
Were you able to, I believe you can donate to multiple nonprofits at once. Were you able to kind of make people aware that they didn't have to necessarily go table to table and donate each one? They could kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by donating to multiple nonprofits at one checkout.
Yeah, so I think what took.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Hope the pop-up or the breakout sessions are going well. And we're on to our final 2 presenters. So we have Miri with Friends of the Myakka River. They're a small nonprofit organization, and their first Giving Challenge year was 2020. But I think Miri's first experience with the Giving Challenge was in 2022. And their organization in 2022 raised about $37,000 with 145 donors, 149 gifts, and all of those awards they won were amazing. First place overall prize campaign for a small nonprofit. They won Best Video Commercial, Best Giving Challenge Photo, Best Turnaround, Best Use of Social Media, and number 8 overall on the Small Organization Leaderboard. So I will give the mic over to Miri.
Can you actually go back to the previous slide, Audie?
I can.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Miri Hardy, Friends of Myakka River, and it's a pleasure to be here today. For those of you who are not familiar with Friends of Myakka River, we are a citizen support organization for Myakka River State Park. We exist to support the park and the wild and scenic Myakka River, and we like to say that together we're protecting and sharing Myakka's magic to the benefit of future generations and our own. And it's kind of funny to be talking towards the end of this really incredible training. And thank you to the Community Foundation for all of this. Because some of you who have not experienced a giving challenge before or are from a small organization like we are, might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed because it's a lot. It's really, really exciting and it's a great opportunity. But for organizations such as my organization, historically, we've always been an all volunteer organization, which means no development department, no marketing department, no communications department, you know, a very small board that might not be very hands-on. How do you approach a challenge like this? Next slide. Odie, thank you. So the first step that we took, and I'm going to go into more detail in my breakout session, is just starting off by wrapping our heads around the giving challenge. As you heard today, there's a lot of different things going on, different opportunities. There's pop-ups, there's peer-to-peer. Again, for those of us that this is all new, you know, you got to start somewhere. And thankfully, the Giving Challenge is a fantastic opportunity that can actually be an absolute game changer for small organizations such as our own. Because you have access to countless potential new donors and contacts. You've got promotional and networking opportunities. It gives you strategic focus, as has already been mentioned today. You got to start now. You're already starting now because you're here today thinking about this. And trainings. Today is amazing. If you go to the Community Foundation's website, you'll find the training from 2022. And I went over every single possible thing that was on the website, and it was invaluable. And again, you gotta, you know, compare apples to apples and don't get overwhelmed by the big dogs and the big cats. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But just learn and dream big, which is what we did. Next. So what we wanted to achieve with the Giving Challenge was we wanted to raise substantial funds for our brand new at the time outreach and environmental education program. Oh,
Sorry about that.
well, that's okay.
Let me redo that.
I thought I was going to get a new prize over there or something. Kind of excited.
Bear with me, everyone.
And we also wanted to build awareness about Friends of Mayaka River. As I mentioned, small organization, not a lot of recognition. This seemed like a great opportunity to do that. We wanted to gain new donors and new followers. And we wanted to build important relationships with philanthropists. The essence of the Giving Challenge is we are all philanthropists. We can all be the one. But this is also an opportunity to get your organization in front of folks like the Community Foundation and the Patterson Foundation and a lot of other donors out there. Next slide.
I think that is your last slide that you, or no, there it is.
No, this is my list. How we plan to do this. We wanted to create a focused, eye-catching, compelling campaign, and I'll talk more about that in my breakout. We wanted to drive higher average donations. I'll talk about that. And we also importantly want to capitalize on all viable opportunities to increase total amount raised via the 2022 Giving Challenge, prizes. As I mentioned, you got to know your capacity. So, you know, some of the things we knew we weren't going to be able to do. Again, I'll talk more about that in the breakout. And we wanted to use multiple channels to generate awareness and excitement before the Giving Challenge. Again, if you join me, I'll be going into all that and more.
Thank you, Mary. And last but finally not least, we have Autumn with the Humane Society of Sarasota County. Their first Giving Challenge was in 2012, which was our first Giving Challenge as a whole. And in 2022, they raised $83,000 with over 500 donors. They won Best Overall Campaign for a large nonprofit and actually tied for first place with Harvest House. They also won Best Giving Challenge Story for 2020. They were a Fast 50 prize recipient, and overall, Autumn shares that they only spent $100 for their campaign in 2022. So they are a large nonprofit, and I'm happy to pass the mic over to Autumn.
Thank you, Odie. So I'm Autumn Steiner. I'm the Senior Director of Philanthropy here at the Humane Society of Sarasota County. I do have my assistant with me today. This is Penny Blossom. She is my personal pet and my, I would say, emotional support animal. She's been with me through all the various giving challenges since I started there in 2016. So maybe she's part of the secret sauce to our success. But so we have been, as Odie said, proudly participating in the Giving Challenge since it began. And we are so grateful for the opportunity and just the wonderful momentum that it generates in the community. As a humane society, we have a lot of great things going for us in that people generally know what we do and what we stand for, but we also have a lot of misconceptions about, oh, you must be part of another humane society, you must receive money from the government, or, you know, you're the ASPCA, I see your Sarah McLachlan commercials. So a really great part about the Giving Challenge is that it gives us an opportunity to distinguish ourselves, to educate people that, hey, we're a local nonprofit. We have to raise all of our own funds every year. So even though we are quite large, our budget in 2022 for our operating was $4.5 million. We still need to raise all that ourselves. So the Giving Challenge is a huge part of our annual fundraising strategy. So how we operate, we like to be authentic, heartwarming, and humorous. So we're always looking at how do we take what's provided, how do we take the materials that the Community Foundation provides, and how do we put our own ESSC spin on that. And in 2022, we landed on this idea that, and if you want to go forward to the next slide for a second for me, this idea that to the world it's just one animal, but to one person that animal is the world. We know that every animal is just one adoption away from changing someone's life, right? My dog here with me, she's, you know, my whole world. And our most ardent hope is that when people adopt, that animal becomes that important to them. And our Giving Challenge campaign that year, the strategy or the thematic concept behind it derived from this idea. And we'd had an offhand comment someone made about, oh my gosh, you spent $5,000 repairing a cat's jaw. Why would we do that? And we said, because that cat wanted to live, and we felt that it was our responsibility to give her that chance. And so we kind of used her as our guiding light. And then from there, we wanted to have a little fun with it. So we had these life lessons that animals teach us, and they kind of look like trading cards. But those were things that we used throughout in the marketing of our Giving Challenge. So we have been really fortunate to always, or not always, but in the past 2 years to win Best Overall Campaign. And I really feel that that is because we spend a lot of time thinking about how to make our campaign memorable. In 2022, we set 5 different goals. One of them was to raise $75,000 or more, which we met. To spend less than $500, which we did. We really didn't spend any money at all because we relied very strongly on digital. To win at least one prize, which we did. And then the other 2 were to recruit peer-to-peer fundraisers. I'm happy to have attended the peer-to-peer breakout this morning because that's one area where we are a little weak in. So I'm, you know, looking forward to doing better at that in the coming year. And then our last goal is to make sure everyone was thanked in a meaningful way. So if you attend my session, I'm going to touch on how we got to those goals, how we achieved them, and how we met some of the challenges that we faced going into the Giving Challenge, and things that we will face again going into 2024.
Thank you, Autumn. All right. Our last and final breakout session, we're going to start that, and then please put in the chat which session you'd like to go to, and then Erica and I will do our best to get you where you want to go as quick as possible.
Nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad you're here. we're gonna start in a minute.
You need to round up another alligator for next year.
You know, as I mentioned, you know, the time to start thinking about the giving challenge was yesterday. Guess what, Joyce?
What?
I already got my alligators lined up.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry.
All right. So we've got Joyce from Transition, and it's her second giving challenge. Venice Warehouse, third giving challenge. First for Barbara, not for the organization. That's where I was in 2022. Chianti, you're first, the third for the organization. Fourth from Linda. Cindy, second. Alex with Unidos Now. Second, but first time helping. Yeah. Right. So what I figured I'd do, I've got some slides with a bit more information as I promised. So I will go through those fairly quickly. And then I do want to leave time so that if you want me to dig deeper at any point, or if you have your own questions, I want to leave time for that. So this is all just stuff I already went over. So how did we start? And I will point out that when I say we, I'm using the royal we because it was kind of me. And I say this not for bragging rights, but just to acknowledge that for some of you out there, you might be the one doing all the work. The exciting thing is with a giving challenge, like the one that the Community Foundation with the matching funds from the Patterson Foundation, which is huge, you can accomplish so much for your organization, and that is exciting. So the first thing that I recommend doing, if this is your first giving challenge, wrap your head around the resources. As I mentioned, when you go to the Community Foundation website on the Giving Challenge page, there will be trainings. Just go through them. You will learn so much. And then start thinking, who can help me? Again, for some of you, the people who will help you are your board members. For others, maybe it's just friends. You know, I happen to have some buddies who are in the philanthropy world. I bought them a beer and sat down and, you know, they just downloaded everything what they knew. I went home, had a bit of a reality check. I was like, yeah, no, I can't do that, but I can do that. And that's one place to start. Mentors, you know, folks such as myself, you know, you have permission to email me and ask me questions. Find the people in the community that want to help you shine, because this is a community-wide event and this is what it's all about. So once I kind of had my head wrapped around what this thing even is, then you got to start with your communications. Again, small organizations, a lot of us don't have a communications department. And in my case, I took a step back, which I think is possibly an important step for a lot of organizations. And that was looking at our giving partner profile with a very careful eye. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, what I mean by that. And then once the giving partner profile was in order, started thinking about the Be the One tagline, how to make it aspirational, so something exciting and something that's very Friends of Myakka River. And what's more Friends of Myakka River than an alligator in your face? And then once we kind of had the style in mind, a very branded giving challenge style. And again, for those of you who are doing this for the first time, you might have already noticed there's a lot of yellow in all of our slides and there's a lot of blue. That's not by accident, because those were the branding colors that the Community Foundation asked us all to use. And on the website, there are all of these fantastic clip images that you download and then you edit them. And again, you make them your own, but it gives you the palette to then have a consistent voice. And that is really, really important. Okay, so taking a step back to our giving partner profile. For us, the mind shift was realizing how important this profile really is, and how this is basically your philanthropy calling card. And if it's confused and the photos are not great, you're not setting a great first impression. So the first step for us was completely, and I mean completely, revising our giving partner profile. And that is something that I highly recommend doing now before November 1st. Just look at it and ask yourself, am I making a good first impression? And some suggestions might be, if you're not using a high resolution photo, use a high resolution photo. Elevate your messaging. What do I mean by that? A lot of us smaller nonprofit organizations kind of get into the weeds with our messaging. So, we exist to buy uniforms and to fix broken stuff. And to be honest, that is not very exciting. So if you think about it at a level of how do we really make a difference in people's lives? What are we doing that is making the world a better place? Put yourself in the head of a very wealthy person who is basically swiping through profiles and is looking for an organization that resonates. Okay, so an elevator speech that really, really hits people, in a meaningful way. You got to be true to your organization. Keep it short, keep it compelling. Who are you? Why should anyone care? And what are your unique selling points? And then the next step, and again, I don't know if it's going to be the same this year, but in 2022, the first opportunity to win some money and get some focus on your campaign was a pre-giving challenge prize opportunity, which was to create a 30-second video commercial. And that was basically, that award was announced a month before the challenge. And what was fantastic about this challenge is not just the opportunity to get some money before the challenge, but also 30 seconds, people. You gotta really, really focus your messaging. So I'm gonna see if we can play this. This was our Giving Challenge commercial. And there you have it. So what that accomplished for us is, again, it just focuses your message. It focuses your message, it sets the tone, and even more so, oops, sorry. So exciting, you want to see it again, don't you?
Yes.
All right. There you go. What it also gives you, it gives you a communication tool, which again, for those of us who don't really think in those ways, this is something that you now have that you can post on your website, you can send it to all your contacts, you can use it on social media. And if you actually win, that's really exciting as well. So a month before the Giving Challenge, we started building awareness about this really important date and generating excitement with the video commercial that we created. And I will point out that the scene in the middle, the guys with the newspaper, those are my buddies, the philanthropy experts. So we kind of did a lot of, multitasking. They also got to get into the video. So, again, you just use your people however you can. And through social media. Social media is so important. with the Giving Challenge. I think, Linda, you guys were mentioning how important it was for you as well. You just have to get on that. Speaking of which, during the 24 hours of the Giving Challenge, we wanted to keep that excitement going. And this is where, again, you start to realize there's a lot of planning here. Okay, if you've got 24 hours and you want to keep excitement going and you are a small organization, you got to have everything ready. So if you're quick to count, you'll notice that there aren't 24 images on the screen because I did get, I think, 4 hours of sleep that night. So there were 18 every hour for 18 hours. I was posting social media content with images I already had prepared, with posts I already had prepared, but with updates about where we were in the challenge, what was happening, how much money we had raised, and as has been mentioned here today, acknowledging donors, giving people shout outs. And there are a couple of prizes for shout outs. So, again, we're multitasking. We're acknowledging donors and we're winning another $500. So let's get to some results. So we raised over $37,000. We more than tripled the total amount we raised in 2020. Over 75% of our donors were first-time donors, and we increased our donor count by 83%. We increased average donation size by 89%, and we won 6 awards for a total of $11,100. Looking specifically at some of the ways that you can make something like that happen. So the light blue is 2020, the darker blue is 2022. More donors with a higher average donation size, more money, right? How do you get people to donate more? One of the easiest ways that we found was suggesting to people how much they donate. So just the whole $100 match from the Patterson Foundation is golden because, people want to maximize how much they help you. But another nifty little trick using the platform is by default, people just type in how much they want to donate. The minimum is $25. However, you can set up suggested amounts. And I highly recommend doing it because now they're different. You're just telling people, yeah, you could do 25, but there's also 50 or 100 or even 200. So, use the system to your advantage. Plan to apply for prizes. The prizes are not automatic, except for the donor shout outs on Facebook and Instagram, which I still don't know why we didn't get that one, but I won't be quibbly here. Everything else you need to apply for, but you want to have in your head ahead of time. These are things that I'm going for. The one thing that was fantastic in 2022, unlike 2020, I think in 2020, there was no limit on how many prizes you can apply for, which is overwhelming. So there was a limit in 2022. We applied for the maximum, but we only applied for things that I knew were viable for us. We didn't do pop-ups. We didn't have any interactions with other organizations. So these are the things that I knew. If you're a small organization that is striving to do better, turnaround is huge, right? Because the one thing you want to be thinking about as well is if you're trying to raise more money, which are the bigger prizes? Turnaround is $2,000. That's a lot of money. I mean, obviously, the best overall campaign, $5,000, that's fantastic. But, just be thinking about what can I do? What is viable for us? But you gotta be in it to win it, okay? I'll be honest with you. I had big plans for how I was going to use social media. I was going to engage our followers, and it flopped. It really did not go well. And I saw other social media campaigns that I thought were excellent. So I was thinking to myself, they did really, really great. And I had this great plan and it really didn't go well. So I really shouldn't apply. And then I slapped myself and sat down and put together the application. And again, the really interesting thing about these applications, they are detailed, they are strategically driven, and the Community Foundation wants to see your thinking. They want to see your process. They want to see your strategy. So sometimes what actually happened, as long as you did something and it was good, yeah, it might have been better, but you learned from it. So, don't cut yourself out before, don't be your own judge, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's kind of what I have from my end. I'd very much like to open the floor to any questions you have, any confusion you might still have about the various aspects of the challenge that I can help with, or anything else that you want to voice at this time.
Question, are you the general coordinator of all this event for the campaign, or do you have people that is supporting you, helping you in different sections, photography, videos, stuff like that?
That's a great question. I'm the photographer, I'm the videographer, I'm the editor, I do social media, so no. But, and to your point, 2022 and 2024 are going to be very different. So 2024, our organization, directly, honestly, as a result of our success during the 2022 Giving Challenge, we have grown. I now have a full-time position, which I did not at the time because of this success. And I now have volunteers that I did not have at the time. We have grown. We have 200 more members than we did at the time. So I have people now. So again, this is the power of a challenge like this. It truly can transform an organization. But for 2022, what you see was pretty much myself.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. You did a terrific job. Congratulations.
Thank you. And again, I'm saying this to inspire you because you can all be the one. You really, truly can.
I have another question. Are you connected to the Mayaca State Park, or this is a separate organization?
We are the citizen support for Mayaca River State Park. So we are the only nonprofit organization that can direct funds directly to the park.
Okay. Has the tower been fixed by now, or still?
The canopy walkway?
Yes.
Is open. Yes.
It's open again. Yeah, because last time I went, it was broken, and I was so sad because it's a beautiful view to look from up there. Thank you very much.
Sure. And seriously, any questions, any follow-up, feel free to drop me an email, miri@friendsofmayacariver.org. Happy to help you guys out.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you for coming to the Humane Society presentation. I see Valerie here from Manatee County. Hi, Valerie. Like I mentioned in my lead up presentation, Humane Societies are not franchises, so we're not all connected, but we do definitely support each other. So glad to see her here. So how we start planning, lots of people are coming in. So I'm just going to go over how we plan for the Giving Challenge and some of the ways that we do our goal setting, and then looking at our audiences and the different things we create for our different channels. So we do our budget. Our budget goes concurrent with the calendar year. So like right now, we're getting started thinking about our 2024 budget. So this is when we would be setting our Giving Challenge budget goal. So normally we look at how we've done in the past years, some of the trends, like the information provided here on the average amount per sector is very helpful. And we look at what other concurrent things that we have happening at that time that we think might either help boost performance in the Giving Challenge or maybe cannibalize a little bit. So for 2024, we already know that we will be having our biggest event of the year the Friday right before. So that's a bit of a challenge. And I actually just attended a webinar provided by the Community Foundation about how to turn challenges into opportunities. So looking at it as not, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull off a major event and then 2 days, 3 days later, it's a Giving Challenge, looking at it as an opportunity for how we can use them to boost each other. So, you know, when we're setting our goal, we typically will look at, you know, we want to be aspirational but realistic because this is being factored into our overall annual budget. We don't want to set goals that we can't necessarily meet, and then that has ramifications for our overall organization. Personally, for me, when I'm looking at the Giving Challenge, I usually will, I'm a writer by training. So for me, I always go back to, I'm going to write like a concept piece. And this is where I start to flesh out what would be our theme for the challenge. And so I kind of just, I sat down and I said, all right, what are we thinking about? How do we take the Be the One concept? How do we factor in what we are and what we do and some things that make us unique? And I came up with the concept piece. And that is, you know, maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs. And I use that text, and I'm going to share it with you, not that you all have to read this, but I use this to create our, can you see it? I'm not sure what. So that Word document, let me pull up the right one. So this is what I wrote for going into 2022. Sorry, I got 2 screens on here. Just about how much animals teach us, and that what I mentioned about, you know, to the world, it's just one animal, but to one person, that animal is the world. So I use this for our giving page, and then when we're creating all of our different content. So I find it's really handy to have this sort of all-purpose copy that I can then iterate in various different ways throughout the challenge. And I think that's one of the things that really helps us, because even though we are a large nonprofit, we don't have a large team. In our fundraising department, there's me, now we have an events person. We didn't have one until last year, so that's new. We have a marketing coordinator and someone who does all of our gift entry. So it's a small team. So we have to make sure that we are not overloading ourselves. And so by having pieces that we can do double duty and things we can use that we can share with multiple people and just tweak them, that's really, really helpful, because otherwise, you know, as many of you know, the Giving Challenge can be extremely overwhelming just in the amount of communication and marketing. You're posting a lot, you're sharing a lot of emails, you're trying to get in touch with so many people. So once we've got our concept, then we start doing, you know, we transition it into sort of a graphic look. And I will share that. So, you know, this is where we ended up last year with this life lessons that animals teach us, using all of our own animal photos and things. And what I've noticed in the 4, now going on 5 challenges that I've planned here, the ones where we're having the most fun are the ones where we do the best. So fun being, you know, we're having fun with the concept. We're having fun with the challenge. We're not taking ourselves so seriously. We're trying to be authentic. And so that's always a big part of how we approach this. Once we've got our concept and we've got our graphical, like our graphic look nailed down, then we start digging into our different channels. How are we going to reach people? Who do we know and who do we want to know? So we have a lot of different constituents. We have board members. We have a huge volunteer base. We have our adopters, and we have people that are clients of ours that maybe, you know, through different programs we offer. And all of those people, plus our donors, of course, are primed for receiving pre-challenge communications. And those people are also really great for prospects for the peer-to-peer. especially our volunteers. And I think it was during the peer-to-peer breakout, they were talking about it can be really intimidating for people to ask for money if they're not in the fundraising field. So the peer-to-peer is really nice because it's basically just like, doing a Facebook fundraiser. It's super simple. It gives people an opportunity to share why they care about a cause, and then just share it with their network. So that's something that we want to be better at. We tried doing it last year, and we know kind of where we fell short. But then in terms of how do we empower those different audiences to succeed during the Giving Challenge, we're providing them with as much that like pre-made as we can. We're giving them a template letter. We're giving them some graphics, some things they can use on their own social media. We are making little videos. We're making signage and things that they can customize because we don't want it to be difficult for a volunteer or for a board member to go out and share this message. We always create a very detailed task document. So I'm a big Excel person. I love Excel. I actually have a running spreadsheet with all of the giving challenges that we've participated in kind of side by side. And I find that really helpful because I can see the performance of each one. Okay, here's what we raised in this year. Here was our theme. Here was our goal. Here was the number of donors, number of peer-to-peer, etc., matching prizes. So you can see how things have evolved over the years. And I love Excel, and I kind of will break everything into things to do before the challenge, during the challenge, and after, and then by audience as well. Some of the things that we, that are challenges for us going into the Giving Challenge is just there's a lot of competition for donor attention and donor dollars. We know that, we're not Cat Depot, we're not Nate's Honor, so those, they tend to do really, really well in this. But a rising boat kind of lifts all tides. Oops. Sorry, my office thinks that I'm not here because I haven't moved. But we want to make sure that, people who are interested in supporting animal causes know that we're out there, right? We've also done this a lot. So there can be a challenge internally of how to stay creative, how to stay fresh, and not kind of get lackadaisical or complacent. We know that there's always going to be a competing mailing or a competing event. Like, for example, our Pause on the Catwalk event is going to be right before the 2024 challenge. In 2022, it was only a few weeks before. So it's always how do we make sure we're not going back to the same well of donors and making people feel like they've been asked too many times in too short a duration. And we do that by being very, very smart with when we're segmenting out our donor database. Okay, these people just donated at Pause. Do we want to go back in and ask them again for another donation? Or do we want to make sure they're receiving some communication about this, but not necessarily a hard ask? Versus here are all the other people that were not at Pause that we know might be prime for donating. We also, I think with the flanger trusting out there, there's a little bit of some confusion maybe in the community about, oh, well, if that's happening all the time, why would I want to donate during the Giving Challenge, or people not necessarily knowing the difference. So we find that this is a good time to educate the public on how the Giving Challenge works, that it's a different thing than maybe another matching program that's ongoing. And this is a really special opportunity, and making sure people understand how to give. So we do have, people in our database who are not maybe technologically savvy. And so we want to be available to them if they do need help on the day of the challenge with how to actually donate, how to use the Giving Challenge website. And so we always make sure we have our staff trained so that when those questions come in, we can be ready to answer them. And then thanking people. I love the tools, the automated tools that they have in the Giving Partner or in the GiveGab platform for setting up a nice thank you. You can embed a video, you can do all kinds of cute stuff. We think it's valuable to be constantly monitoring that list of who's donated And anybody that gives above a certain amount, we want to make sure we personally thank them, so that might mean me reaching out to them or our executive director or someone on our board, just to make sure we know, or they know that, hey, we saw that you just made this gift of a significant amount. Thank you so much. But that we're not forgetting the people who are making the smaller gifts either. And then it all goes down to, how do we retain those people? The Giving Challenge is a huge opportunity to bring new donors in, but we don't want to just turn and burn. We want to get those people in. We want to make sure we're capturing their information and getting them into our cultivation portal so that we can make them, consistent donors, not just a one-hit wonder. And then talking about where we want to go for 2024. So I really love the pop-up donation station. I think that's a great opportunity. We have a really nice facility. We're always trying to drive people here because if they're here, they may end up walking away with a cat or a dog. So that's always a win-win for everyone. And we've done some kind of, I want to call it almost like guerrilla marketing during previous challenges, where we drove around in our adoption vehicle and sort of hopped out at different places in Sarasota and approached people like, hey, did you know the Giving Challenge is going on? It was maybe a little aggressive, but it was pretty fun, honestly. We always had dogs with us. So I think, like I said before, the more creative you can be, the more fun you can have with this, I think the better that your challenge will be, because that definitely comes through. Questions? Anybody want to, round table about what challenges you've experienced or things that you think are pertinent? I would be interested in, hearing from you all about your technology that you've used. If you've, like, we started doing more on TikTok the last time during the last challenge, because we felt it was a good venue or a good platform for us to be fun and do some quick hit marketing. Did anybody else have any technology that they used last time or are planning to use?
Autumn, our plan is, early stages, but we really would like to incorporate more of the whole TikTok, Facebook Live, those type of feeds. Trying to add a whole different twist than we normally do. Totally appreciate where you're coming from on everything you brought up, because we've run into that same thing. And so just looking for some things that are outside of the box, so we just keep the motivation going. So we've been participating since the very beginning, and every year there's some new twists and turns, and you just got to go with them.
Yeah, you definitely do. And that's what makes it fun, though. I mean, I think our best year ever was 2020, which was a total dumpster fire, for everyone, in terms of the world was just imploding. And so we said, you know what, we're gonna take the chaos and we're gonna make that our theme. And so our theme that year was be the one to Netflix and chill. So everything was based on, it looked like Netflix scrolling screens. It looked like you were getting ready to watch like a Netflix show, because we knew everyone was stuck at home and feeling very like, oh my gosh, what do we do about the world? So I think leaning into whatever challenge that might be does have an impact. And we've done this a lot. I think if there's things that we can improve upon, it would be to start planning sooner. We tend to be chasing our tail sometimes. No pun intended, but just the nature of our organization and the nature of animal welfare is things happen very quickly. We might have things might be going along kind of status quo, and the next thing you know, we have gotten in a huge transport of animals, or and there's some kind of outbreak or a natural disaster or whatever it might be. We need to be prepared to pivot. And so that can totally alter our strategy as well. But we're looking forward to 2024. This is actually, you know, in doing this presentation and in working through things, it's given me, it spurred me to have to start thinking through what our strategy is going to be. Anybody else have anything they want to chime in here? Talking about their challenges or their opportunities as a large nonprofit?
I love your campaign. It really appeals to emotions and it was very well thought out. It's, you know, thank you for, and thanks for sharing your best practices with us.
My pleasure. Well, it looks like the breakout room's going to close here. So thank you all for being a great audience. I hope you all have a wonderful year-end giving season and a nice 2024 giving challenge.
All right. Well, we just want to be mindful of everyone's time, and we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today for this this peer learnings training. And this was the first time we were trying it out with the breakout room options and then presenting and then a breakout room option. I want to thank all of our nonprofit leaders who presented their strategies from 2022 to share with you all. If anyone wanted to stay and ask more questions, I don't have a hard stop. So you're welcome to stay in this main room and continue asking questions. But if anyone needs to leave and get to their next meeting or go to lunch, you're welcome to. But thank you again for coming. And this meeting or this training was recorded. So we'll have the recording, the materials, the presentation available on the Giving Challenge website later on. But yeah, have a great day and feel free to stay and ask more questions if you'd like.